and welcome. Now, just after the Indo-China border standoff and before the visit of the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, the Hindu leads with the story that border issue must stay in focus, says Chinese official, and that also to a generic drug manufacturer settled by the U.S. courts. Very importantly, saying that the U.S. subsidiary of Ranbaxy Monday agreed to pay $500 million after pleading guilty to felony charges related to the manufacture and the distribution of adulterated drugs at 2 units of India. Now, another important story focused by the Indian Express is that India, Times of India, of course, having a very different take on the headlines today. We know that you have the headline saying that Sheila Dikshit says that she was offered money for the party ticket. Bag of sweets, he told me it was money collected for my election. He had come to ask for a seat. That's one of the stories there. Also about Digvijay Singh, according to some statistics that the Economic Times gives, Tata Steel's consolidated goodwill stood at 17,354 crore rupees, but it has written off half of its goodwill accrued. So these are the main focus of the newspapers today. That's it from me here. Back to the studio. Social media, next thing you know is some charges against you, then you're behind the prison. Is this going to, in a way, covertly create that sense of fear from exercising that freedom, which our democracy actually really celebrates, you know, in that sense?
You're perfectly right, and that is one side of the story. In fact, there have been that this imprisonment business is not done, and if you notice, who are the people who've been acted against? They've all been acted against by people who are very influential and against people who are...
To some other news in the news.
The Indian Express that is here. Largest ever settlement, Ranbaxy, the firm Ranbaxy, and when we really used to taking drugs from Ranbaxy, the famous Indian pharma drug giant, to pay $500 million to one generic firm actually, and the US court has settled that, saying that adulterated drugs at 2 units of India, and they were guilty of felony charges related to the manufacture and the distribution of these drugs.
Well, first of all, I don't think Ranbaxy is an Indian company anymore. So we can brush aside that obligation that it's a company taken over by a Japanese company. There's some shareholding in it. Matter to clear its name, not in just this case, but a whole lot of cases where suspicions have fallen.
Sandeep, speaking about international trade and commerce and of course manufacturing industry.
Stay in focus, says the Chinese official, and I think before Chinese Premier Li Keqiang is going to visit India, they have formally announced that the recent 3-week face-off between India and China, they must take second step towards resolving the border issue. So how do you see this panning out now once they...
Yeah, the border issues are that is the 4th step. What we are into is the 2nd step just now. First step was the guiding principles for the border. The second was having a framework or a architecture for discussing this. And the third is delineating the LAC so that this kind of face-offs don't occur.
Sandeep, I would just like to interrupt you.